Commander Victor Ulan rotated all three eye stalks toward the tactical display, his bioluminescent scales pulsing with irritation. The faint blue blip marking the human ship had once again slipped past their sensor net. How? How do they keep doing this? He gurgled, slamming a tentacle down on the command chair. We possess the most advanced tracking systems across 7 galaxies, and that vessel is barely patched together with, what do they call it? Duct tape. Yet every time we close in, they vanish like quantum ghosts. Lieutenant Prell, his navigation officer, clicked her mandibles together in a nervous rhythm, glancing between the display and her commander. Mandibles clicking softly, she reported, "Sir, the humans appear to be manipulating our sensor algorithms. They're using our own detection patterns against us." "That's impossible," Vixtar snapped. "Our systems are protected by 37 layers of quantum encryption. No species without hive mind capabilities could possibly—" "With all due respect, Commander," Science Officer Zenthar cut in, "humans don't tackle problems like other species. They don't search for the elegant solution, they search for the irritating one." The bridge went quiet. Zenthar was new to the crew, fresh from the Galactic Academy, where he'd specialized in Terran studies, a career path most saw as a tragic waste of a perfectly good education. "Explain," Vixtar demanded, his gill slits flaring. Narrowing in clear displeasure, Zenthar moved to the central display, his tentacles gliding over the controls with effortless precision. "The humans call it thinking outside the box," he said. "We search for them using standard military algorithms because that's the logical thing to do. But humans—" He paused for effect. "Humans mask their emission signatures by routing them through their waste disposal system." "They're what?" Vixtar's voice pitched upward in disbelief. "They are, quite literally, hiding in their own excrement, sir. Our sensors are programmed to ignore waste output as irrelevant background noise." A collective groan rolled through the bridge crew. Even by human standards, this was revolting. "Clever. Fine," Vixtar conceded. "Recalibrate the sensors. I want that ship found before the Grand Admiral arrives. The humans have been a persistent nuisance in this sector for far too long." As the crew rushed to comply, Vixtar contemplated the maddening species that had plagued his command. Humans were contradictions incarnate, technologically primitive compared to the galactic hegemony, yet somehow capable of standing toe-to-toe with far superior forces. Their homeworld was a backwater speck on the edge of an unremarkable spiral arm, yet they had spread faster than any species in recorded history. "Sir!" Communications Officer Drex's voice cut through his thoughts. "We're receiving a transmission. It's from the human vessel." His scales flashed with surprise. "They are contacting us? Put it through." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the face of a human female. Her skin was a deep, rich brown, and her head was crowned with what Vixtar recognized as artificial hair extensions, intricately braided into a complex pattern. Her uniform was non-standard, patched in multiple places with mismatched materials. "A Gemini vessel?" she began, her tone maddeningly casual. "This is Captain Amara Okonquo of the independent cruiser Relentless Optimism. Just wanted to let you know, your sensor recalibration won't work. We've already moved on to Plan B, which you'll find even more irritating than Plan A. But hey, points for effort." Vixtar's upper tentacles coiled in fury. "You are in violation of hegemony, space human. Surrender your vessel immediately or face obliteration." Captain Okonquo laughed. Not the strained, nervous kind, but a warm, genuine laugh, as if Vixtar had just told a particularly good joke at a social function. "Commander, I'm sorry, I didn't catch your name." "Commander Vixtarol Ban of the 7th Fleet," he replied automatically, then instantly regretted revealing it. "Commander Vixtar," she repeated, her tone light. "You seem like a reasonable tentacle person, so I'll give you some free advice. Humans don't do surrender. It's not in our vocabulary. Well, technically it is. But right next to it in our dictionary, it says only as a last resort before doing something truly insane. Your insolence, not insolence, Commander. Just facts. You've got two options here. One, you can continue this little chase. Spoiler alert. It ends with your ship experiencing what we call a catastrophic malfunction. Or two, she leaned back slightly, as if offering a casual deal over drinks. You can pretend you never saw us and avoid the mountain of paperwork that comes with explaining how a single human vessel outsmarted the famous Seventh Fleet. The bridge had gone utterly still. Even the steady hum of life support systems seemed to fade, as if the ship itself were eavesdropping. You dare threaten a Hegemony command ship? Vixtar's voice was low and dangerous. Captain Okonquo's smile didn't falter, but her eyes shifted, losing their warmth, gaining something sharp and cold. Something that promised she wasn't joking anymore, could somehow see through the hull. Yes, sir, Prell confirmed, her mandibles clicking in disbelief. They're in our sensor blind spot, matching our drift perfectly. A murmur rippled through the bridge. Vixtar's bioluminescent scales pulsed a frustrated amber. They're hiding under our ship? Appears so, Commander, Zinthar said, his tone both impressed and appalled. Perfectly within the waste discharge shadow. We can't get a weapons lock without hitting ourselves. For a long moment, Vixtar simply stared at the tactical display, tentacles curling tighter and tighter. Humans, he thought, were not warriors in the traditional sense. They were something far worse. Problem solvers could see through the hull. Yes, sir, they have attached themselves to our vententral hull. They are in our sensor blind spot. For the first time in his distinguished career, Commander Victor Ulan was speechless. Captain Amara Okonquo switched off the comm and leaned back in her jury-rigged command chair. Well, that went about. Ace expected her exo. Victor Petrov, a burly man with a magnificent beard and more scars than original skin, snorted. You enjoyed that too much, Captain Guiltius charged. Amara admitted. There's something satisfying about watching those eye stalks twitch. When they realize they have been outplayed by primitives, the relentless optimism was by any reasonable standard. A piece of junk, a former mining vessel repurposed for war. It had none of the sleek design or advanced technology of Hegemony ships. What it did have, however, was a crew of humans who excelled at making the impossible merely improbable. Ravi, how long before they figure out how to scan their own hull properly? Asked Lieutenant Ravi Patel, their tech specialist, didn't look up from his console. His fingers danced across the interface, occasionally pausing to adjust the neural link attached to his temple. I've looped their external sensors into a feedback cycle. They are essentially watching a recorded image of their own hull from 10 minutes ago, but the algorithm will degrade in 17 minutes, give or take. That's cutting it close. Victor muttered. It will be enough. Amara assured him. Josie, how's our package coming along? Sergeant Josephine Josie Rivera emerged from the lower deck. Access hatch. Her environmental suit covered in a substance no one wanted to. Identify magnetically attached to their main propulsion manifold, Captain. When this baby goes off, it will look exactly like a catastrophic drive malfunction. Any casualties? Amara asked, her tone more serious. None on our side, Josie replied. And I set the timer to give them plenty of warning to evacuate. Their ship will be toast, but the crew should survive in escape pods. Amara nodded. Good, contrary to what the Hegemony propaganda says, we are not barbarians, just extremely creative problem solvers. Victor added with a grim smile, the ship's AI, affectionately named Murphy after some ancient human law about things. Going wrong. Chimed in with Captain Amara's confrontationits. Synthetic voice. Captain, I'm detecting increased activity in the Hegemony vessel's security protocols. They may be attempting to override our sensor loop sooner than expected. Amara frowned. Time to move to Phase 2. Ravi, initiate the Trojan horse, initiating now. Ravi confirmed virus package deploying through their environmental control system. Murphy, prepare for emergency detachment. Victor makes sure everyone's strapped in. This is going to get bumpy by as her crew rushed to comply. Amara allowed herself a moment of reflection. Years ago, she'd been a civilian transport pilot, fing passengers between Earth's colonies. Then the Hegemony had arrived, claiming this sector as their territory, demanding humanity's submission. What followed was not the quick conquest they had expected, but a grinding, brutal conflict against a species that refused to acknowledge the concept of inevitable defeat. The official Earth government had surrendered. 3 years ago, the unofficial resistance had only grown stronger. Captain Murphy's voice interrupted her. Thoughts: the Hegemony vessel is experiencing system-wide failure. Sour virus has successfully penetrated their command protocols right on schedule. Amara murmured. Josie status of our little gift. 15 minutes to detonation. Captain Perfect Murphy, begin attachment sequence. Let's be well clear before the fireworks start. The relentless optimism shuddered as the magnetic clamps released from the Hegemony. Vessel's hull thrusters fired, precisely pushing them away from the larger ship at exactly the right velocity to slip into its sensor shadow. We are clear, Captain Victor reported, and they are too busy dealing with their systems crash to notice us. Leaving excellent Ravi set course for the rendezvous point. The resistance cell on Proxima Station will be expecting their supplies. Failures due to extended deployment without proper maintenance, and the unofficial report suggests human sabotage. Sir, though, how primitives could possibly overcome our technological superiority remains unexplained. Vex lore made a sound somewhere. Between a laugh and a cough, bring me science adept Jorel. I believe it's time we consulted our expert on human behavior. When science adept Jorel L. arrived on the observation deck, the lore was still watching the dissipating debris field. Jorel was unusual for a Hegemony officer, smaller than average, with scales that had lost their luminescence from spending too much time in human standard lighting. He had devoted his career to studying the puzzling species, a choice that had earned him more ridicule than respect among his peers. You summoned me, Grand Admiral Jorel. L's voice was soft, almost apologetic. Tell me, Adept, Vexlor said. Without preamble, why do humans persist in this futile resistance? Their government surrendered their military. Forces were decimated by all logical measures. They're defeated, yet they continue to harass us, to bleed us with these pinpricks. Jorel moved to stand beside the Admiral, his gaze also fixed on the fading remnants of the destroyed cruiser with respect. Sir, I believe our fundamental misunderstanding of humans stems from a translation error. A translation error. Vexer's tone was skeptical. Yes, sir. When we first encountered humans and demanded their surrender, we assumed they understood the concept, as we do a rational acceptance of superior force to minimize losses, and they don't. Jorel shook his head. No, sir, for humans, surrender is temporary. A tactical pause, they may lay down arms, but they never truly accept defeat. It's not in their psychological makeup. That's absurd. Thexor snapped. Every species understands the reality of defeat. With respect, sir, humans don't. Their history is filled with examples of seemingly defeated populations continuing to resist against overwhelming odds. They have a concept they call guerrilla warfare, a strategy where a weaker force's knowledge of terrain sabotage and hit-and-run tactics to wear down a stronger enemy. Primitive Thex lore, dismissed but effective, sir, especially against an enemy that expects conventional resistance. The lore was silent for a long moment. What would you suggest, Adept? We need to understand what we are truly facing. Sire, humans don't think like us. They don't calculate odds of success in the same way when faced with certain defeat. They don't surrender. They escalate. They prefer mutual destruction to submission. You are suggesting they are irrational. I'm suggesting they operate on a different kind of rationality, one based on emotion as much as logic, one that values freedom above survival. The sabotage plant Hexor turned away from the viewport, his scales flashing with patterns of deep thought, to prepare a full briefing on human resistance tactics for the command staff. If we are to pacify this sector, we need to understand our enemy, as Jorel left to prepare his briefing. The ex-Laura remained on the observation deck, watching as the last traces of the destroyed cruiser faded into the darkness. 7 ships lost hundreds of crew members, all to a species that should have been conquered years ago. Perhaps it was time to reconsider what victory against humans truly required in the cramped quarters of Proxima Station's maintenance level, now serving as the command center for the local resistance cell. Captain Amara Okonquo delivered her report to a room full of battle-worn humans. The supply run was successful. We have brought medical equipment, ammunition, and enough spare parts to keep our fleet operational for another 3 months, and the Hegemony cruiser asked Colonel Marcus Torres, the highest-ranking military officer to have rejected the official surrender, a complete loss. Amara confirmed, though most of the crew likely survived. Torres nodded approvingly. Good. We are not here to slaughter foot soldiers. We are here to make a statement, and what statement is that the question came from Dr. Eliza Nkosi, one of the few civilian leaders who had joined the resistance, that we can destroy their ships. They have thousands more. The statement, Torres replied, is that humanity doesn't accept defeat. Not now, not ever, even if it costs us everything. Dr. Nkosi challenged. The room fell silent, the question hanging in the air like a physical presence, if necessary. Amara found herself saying, drawing all eyes to her, "But I don't think it will come to that. The Hegemony doesn't understand us. They think because they are technologically superior, victory is inevitable. They don't realize that humans have been defeating superior forces throughout our history." She moved to the central holographic display, activating it to show the known positions of Hegemony forces in the sector. They fight by the book. We fight with creativity, with desperation, with a willingness to try the insane, because we have nothing to lose. And if they adapt, Dr. Nkosi pressed. Amara's expression hardened. Then we will adapt faster. The Hegemony conquers through overwhelming force and expects submission. But humans... She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of each person. Present. Humans don't do surrender. We do extinction events, either theirs or ours, as murmurs of agreement filled the room. Amara wondered if the Hegemony truly understood what they had awakened. Humanity had spent its entire existence fighting against nature, against each other, against the limits of their own biology. Now that fight was directed outward against an enemy that had never faced Grand Admiral Thexlor observes anything like them before, and as the planning for their next operation began, Amara couldn't help but smile. The Hegemony thought they were fighting a defeated species. They were about to learn they were fighting something far more dangerous, a species that didn't know how to lose. Thanks Lorav beginning to realize that the Hegemony's understanding of humanity may be fundamentally flawed. The narrative includes the requested elements of sarcasm, humor, suspense, and dialogue. I have used varied punctuation to help with voice narration and avoided all the words you asked me to exclude. The character names are easy to pronounce and different from typical ones. Science adept Jarrell stood before the assembled command staff of the inevitable dominance, acutely aware that his presentation would not be well received. Grand Admiral Thexor sat at the head of the conference table, his 4 primary eyes fixed on Jarrell. With unnerving intensity, begin, Adept Thexor commanded. Jarrell activated the holographic display as requested. I have compiled a comprehensive analysis of human resistance tactics. What follows may contradict much of what we believe about this species. The display showed footage from various engagements with human forces over the past 3 years. Unlike the official military briefings which focused on Hegemony victories, Jor-El's compilation highlighted failures: ships destroyed by seemingly inferior human vessels' ground force, ambushed by primitive projectile weapons, supply lines disrupted by sabotage. Humans, Jor-El began, are not fighting a conventional war. They know they cannot match our technological superiority and direct confrontation. Instead, they have adopted what they call asymmetric warfare, targeting our vulnerabilities rather than our strengths. Fleet Commander Zakthal, a veteran of the initial invasion, flared his gill slits in dismissal. These are merely the desperate actions of a defeated enemy, hardly worth a strategic reassessment. With respect, Commander Jarrell, Lel countered the data suggests. Otherwise, a human resistance has not diminished since their formal surrender. In fact, it has become more effective. They are learning from each engagement, adapting their tactics, while we continue to follow standard pacification protocols. You speak as if you admire these primitives? Zekathal accused. I study them, Jarrell corrected. And what I have learned is that the Hegemony's fundamental approach to humanity is flawed. We treat them as we would any other conquered species, expecting rational acceptance of defeat once military superiority is demonstrated, but humans have a psychological trait that makes this approach ineffective. And what trait is that? Thicklor asked, leaning forward slightly. Spite Jarrell replied simply. The conference room fell silent. Explain, Thexor. Demanded humans will accept catastrophic losses if it means inflicting damage on an enemy they believe has wronged them. Their historical records are filled with understanding, human psychology, examples of populations fighting to near extinction rather than submitting to rule. They consider unjust, they call it dying on their feet rather than living on their knees irrational. Muttered weapons, specialist Kuv. Perhaps by our standards, Jarrell agreed. But it makes their resistance particularly dangerous. The more force we apply, the more resolute they become. He switched the display to show a map of Hegemony territory in the sector with red markers indicating ships lost and installations damaged. Our current strategy is producing diminishing returns. We are losing more resources attempting to suppress the human resistance than we are gaining from controlling their territory. The X-Lord's scales flickered with complex patterns of thought. What do you propose? Adept a fundamental reassessment of our approach. Humans don't respond to displays of force the way other species. Do they respond to respect? I believe we should a proximity alert cut off. Jarrell's words, the ship's AI announced warning, unidentified vessels approaching configuration, does not match known signatures. Thexlor rose immediately. How many? 3 vessels? Grand Admirals, Maul craft, minimal energy signatures, humans. Thexor stated with certainty they're coming to us now. Interesting weapons, specialist Quare defensive systems, but hold fire. Let's see what they want, sir. Kreb protested standard protocol. For unidentified vessels is immediate neutralization, and how has standard protocol served us? So far? The Explorer asked mildly. No, I want to see what these humans are planning. Activate long-range S. And prepare all systems for immediate jump once our people are clear. Do you really think this will work? Tanya asked quietly, Amara's expression. Sobered it, has to we won't get another chance like this. The diplomatic reception chamber of the inevitable. Dominance was designed to impress soaring ceilings, elaborate light displays generated by bioluminescent organisms, gravity manipulations that created a subtle sensation of awe in most species. General Desmond Okafor, however, appeared entirely unaffected. Asha stood before Grand Admiral Thexor Cav. I appreciate your willingness to meet. Admiral Okafor said with formal politeness, curiosity more than willingness. The Exlor replied, It's not often that resistance fighters request diplomatic talks, Okafor nodded. These are unusual circumstances, Thex. Lord gestured to the ceremonial seating arrangement, please, and his advisor, a middle-aged woman with silver hair who had been introduced simply as Dr. Harper, took their seats. Jarrell noticed that neither seemed intimidated by the Hegemony officers surrounding them, despite being completely at their mercy. You mentioned terms, General Fexlor prompted. I'm curious what you believe you can offer. The Hegemony an end to resistance. Okafor stated it's a genuine peace, not the fiction that currently exists in exchange for autonomy for all human, colonies' withdrawal of hegemony, forces from Earth space, a mutual defense pact against external threats. The lore made a sound that translated roughly as incredulous. Laughter you have lost the war. Yet you propose terms as if you have won it. We haven't lost, Okafor said. Simply your ships continue to be destroyed, your supply lines disrupted, your forces harassed at every turn. How long can the Hegemony sustain these losses before the High Council questions? The value of holding this sector, you overestimate your effectiveness. Human Amara Okonquo leaned forward, 7 cruisers destroyed in the past cycle. Alone, troop transports, ambushed communication relays, sabotaged the economic output from human territories reduced by 60%. Due to resistance activities, the resource expenditure required to maintain control grows every cycle while the return diminishes. Jor observed the lore carefully. The Admiral's scales were displaying patterns of irritation, but also consideration. The human was making points similar to Jor-L's own analysis. And why should we believe that resistance would truly end Thexor Asketas? You have noted humans seem pathologically incapable of accepting defeat because we would have what we truly want. Dr. Harper spoke for the first time. Freedom to determine our own destiny. That's all we have ever fought for. A primitive concept. Fleet commander. Zeke Thal scoffed. Perhaps, Dr. Harper acknowledged. But one we are willing to die for. Are you willing to keep dying to deny it to us? An uncomfortable silence fell over the chamber. This is an interesting philosophical discussion, Dexlor said eventually. But the Hegemony Dr. Harper's nanotech solution does not negotiate with resistance forces. It would undermine the very foundation of our authority. Then why agree to this meeting? Okafor asked. As I said, curiosity. Okafor exchanged a glance with Dr. Harper, then nodded slightly. I understand in that case. We have nothing more to discuss, that's it. Dexlor seemed surprised by the human's easy acceptance. No threats, no desperate pleas would either be effective, Okafor asked. No effects admitted, then why waste breath? Okafor stood. We have made our proposal. You have rejected it. What comes next is simply the continuation of what's already begun as the humans prepared to leave. Jorel felt a growing sense of unease. Something about this encounter wasn't right. Humans didn't simply accept rejection, not according to everything he'd studied about them. Grand Admiral, he said quietly, I believe. He was interrupted by an alarm. The ship's AI announced, warning anomalous energy signature detected in main reactor control systems. Thexor's eye stalk swiveled toward Okafor. What have you done? The human general's expression remained impassive. Opened a door. Security. Detain them. Thexor ordered guards moved to surround the humans, but Okafor and Harper made no attempt to resist Grand Admiral. The ship's AI continued. Unauthorized access detected in primary systems. No known entity infiltrating network. Architecture impossible weapons. Specialist QUF sputtered. Our systems are isolated. There's no external connection that could we brought the connection with. SD Dar Harper interrupted, a slight smile on her face in a manner of speaking. Realization dawned. On Jor-El, they are carriers. Biological carriers. Dexlor's scales flashed with alarm. Explain nanotechnology. Jor said, the pieces, falling into place, embedded in their bodies, designed to interface with our systems, once inside our shields. Correct, Adept. Okafor confirmed Dr. Harper's specialty. Actually quite brilliant. Purge all systems. The Exor commanded initiate emergency protocols too late. Harper said calmly. Your ship is no longer yours? The lights in the diplomatic chamber flickered, then stabilized. At a lower intensity, the ship's AI voice changed, becoming distinctly human in cadence and tone. Hello, inevitable dominance. I'm Murphy. I will be your new operating system today. Aboard the relentless optimism, Amara watched the tactical display with tense anticipation. The Hegemony flagship's energy signature had changed dramatically. Power fluctuations rippling through its massive structures in. Ravi confirmed his expression. One of wonder. I can't believe. It worked. Of course it worked, Amara replied, though her relief was palpable. Murphy takes control. We had the best team possible, and the Hegemony never imagined we'd use their own tactics against them. The original plan had been relatively simple sabotage, the inevitable dominance the same way. They destroyed the cruiser, but during planning Dr. Harper had proposed something far more ambitious, taking control of the flagship rather than destroying it. But the key had been Murphy. Their ship's AI had volunteered to transfer itself into nanobots that could be carried inside human bodies, bypassing the Hegemony's external defenses. Once aboard, the nanobots would network and allow Murphy to infiltrate the ship's system's extraction signal received. Tanya announced, "General Okafor and Dr. Harper are heading for the escape pod. Track them," Amara ordered. "Be ready to jump to their coordinates the moment they are clear." "What about the 3 decoy ships?" Victor asked. "Murphy will disable the Hegemony weapon systems before they can be destroyed," Amara replied. "At least, that's the plan." Minutes crawled by the tension on the bridge, thick enough to cut with a knife then. "Escape pod launched." Tanya's voice rose with excitement. "They are clear. Jump." Now Amara commanded. The relentless optimism's engines flared, propelling them through space toward the tiny escape pod, now hurtling away from the massive Hegemony flagship. "Incoming transmission from the inevitable dominance," Tanya reported. "Put it through." Amara said. Murphy's familiar synthetic voice filled the bridge. "Its package delivered successfully, Captain. I now have complete control of all Hegemony systems there. Crew is, shall we say, extremely confused." A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Amara allowed herself a moment to join in before asking status of our people. "General Okafor and Dr. Harper are unharmed. Their escape pod will rendezvous with your position. In approximately 3 minutes, I have disabled the flagship's weapons and pursuit capabilities and their communications severed. They cannot call for reinforcements." Amara took a deep breath. "Initiate. Final phase." Murphy with pleasure. "Captain, initiating." Data transfer now on the bridge of the inevitable dominance. Chaos reigned. Every control system had been locked out, displays showing only a simple human icon. A stylized face with a mischievous smile report. Dexlor demanded, "Someone tell me what's happening." "We have lost control of all systems," Sir, a technician replied, voice trembling. "The AI, the human AI, has taken over. Everything that's impossible. Our security protocols have been bypassed. Science." Adept Jarrell interrupted. "The humans found a vulnerability. Whenever considered, they used themselves as the delivery mechanism." The main view screen activated, suddenly showing the face of a human female that the lore recognized immediately, Grand Admiral Thex. Lord Cav Captain Amara Okonquo greeted him with a smile that mirrored the icon displayed throughout the ship. "I believe you have met my AI, Murphy. What do you want?" Dexlor demanded. "If you think taking control of one ship will change the Hegemony's position—" "Oh, this isn't about one ship," Amara interrupted. Murphy showed him the display changed to show a data transfer in progress. Massive amounts of information were being extracted from the inevitable. The information theft dominance's database and transmitted to an unknown destination. "What are you doing?" Dexlor asked, a new note of apprehension in his voice. "Taking every piece of Hegemony military intelligence stored in your ship's database," Amara replied. "Fleet deployments, defense codes, weapon specifications, communication protocols, everything you can't possibly decrypt." "Already done," Amara cut him off again. "Your encryption was impressive. 3 years ago, we have had time to work on it. Since then." Jarrell watched as thick lore scales shifted toe patterns, indicating genuine alarm, something he had never seen from the Admiral before. And now Amara continued. "We are transmitting this information to every resistance cell in human space by this time tomorrow. Every Hegemony ship station and outpost in our sector will be vulnerable. Your tactical advantage will be gone. This is an act of war." The ex-lore snarled. Era's expression hardened. "The war began when you invaded our space and demanded our submission. This is just the first time we are fighting on equal terms. The Hegemony will never accept defeat." Dexlor insisted. "We have resources beyond your comprehension. We will send more ships, more troops. At what cost?" Amara asked. How many ships can you lose before this campaign becomes too expensive to sustain?